There we go. Man, it smells like caps. That was a good one. Happy New Year. Happy New Year's Eve. Happy New Year's Day. Whatever it might be in your land, I wish you the greatest of New Year's. We always say that, don't we? It's just, it comes around once a year, but you got to say it. You got to do it. You got to think it. Anyway, how about we just read the news? What about that? All right. Yeah, it tastes like caps. You know, a little cap gun when you had when you were a kid? Those were fun. They were stinky, though. It's whatever that is. I've got a good one. I got a damn good show for you today. What we're talking about is Mayor Ted has, he's on his knees. He's on his knees begging for the state to help him because he let things kind of go. Things have gotten just a wee bit out of control. Wacky stuff going on down in Portland. It's crazy stories. Portland mayor asks Kotek, the mayor, and the Oregon legislature to help address the city's crises during the upcoming season. This is how bad things have gotten in Portland. The mayor can't control his own city. We've known that for a couple of years. The summer of 2020, everybody from the outside from the rest of the world was looking in going, that city's pretty much out of control. And to a point, the mayor basically said, I got this. Maybe I don't have this. I need some state help. He is now asking for federal help. He needs some federal help to help with the homeless encampments. This is crazy stuff. Let's jump on in. Let's see what the deal is. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler shared his list of legislative priorities with Governor-elect Tina Kotek on Tuesday, asking the state to help manage the city's crises because he is unable to manage the city on his own when that is his job and he is the mayor. Am I being too harsh? I don't feel like I am. I feel like your job as the mayor is to run the city. I mean, on the surface of things, right? I mean, you got a lot of people helping you out, but this is how bad it's gotten. I need some state and I need some federal help because clearly I can't do this on my own. That's what I'm seeing. I think that's what most reasonable people are saying, right? Hey, before we jump on in, I would love to have you check out reasonabletv.com. It's our paid website. That's where we got the content going that, you can't see on other channels. Take a look. Love to have you look at it. That's all I'm going to say on that. Wheeler shared his list of priorities with Kotek during a meeting Tuesday. I have a hard time saying Kotek. It's a cringy last name, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, what? That's the new governor. Among them, this is the Christmas wish list, maybe the New Year's wish list that Mayor Ted has. Among them, Mayor lists the city's homelessness crisis. That should be replaced with drug crisis. No doubt. Traffic enforcement. He's only got one traffic cop for a city, 640,000 people, one traffic cop. Civil commitment and mental health care. You got a crap load of crazy people running around on the streets of Portland. That's not good. And they're on drugs. You got some real crazy nonsense going on. A shortage of public defense attorneys. This city is out of control. And the statistics, I'm not just making this up. I'm not just some crazy right-winger just babbling for the sake of babbling because I know you'll listen. These are issues. These are podcast storylines that we have covered in depth, podcast after podcast after podcast. We know the deal. This is what's going on. And it's gotten bad enough. And I've been talking the last probably, I don't know, well, you would know. It's probably the last 4 months. I got to a point, I think a couple of months ago, I was like, yeah, this isn't going to work out well. You're going to have some hard changes and some stuff is going to happen in Portland because it's not going the right direction. And without some major intervention, I didn't think it would be from the federal level, but maybe it is. Do you remember when Trump was like, let's send in the feds? and Mayor Ted is like, that is offensive. We can handle this. Well, yeah, maybe not. I'd like some federal help, please. At the top of his wish list, which KGW received following a records request Wednesday, Wheeler asked Kotek to declare a state of emergency on the homelessness crisis in Oregon. Whole state. Yeah. But you know what's interesting is the homelessness crisis is only in the major cities on the coast in Oregon. You don't have major, and it's also limited to the big cities. The smaller cities, not so much. Why is that? Is that leadership or lack of leadership? I mean, I don't like to criticize folks. I just don't. I like to point out the facts, which is, hey, lack of leadership. Because when you are asking the state and when you are asking the feds for help, because you can't manage the problem you've got, which, maybe it's not all under his watch. Let's be reasonable. I get that. But Mayor Ted is one of many in a long line of succession that has created the problems that we just cited, right? He said this declaration would allow Portland to use emergency management or disaster resources. It's that bad, right? It is that bad in Portland where you need to declare an emergency declaration, get that cold, hard Fed cash coming in. That's the point you're at in Portland. I mean, that's so embarrassing, including using the National Guard to help set up the designated campsites outlined in his own plan for the city. Now, we knew that Mayor Ted didn't have the resources to put his, 3 or 6 encampments totaling a total of 750 people, even though they've probably got 8, 9, 10,000 homeless people, 4,500 people on record. And you always know that's double? There's some, metric there. I don't know what it is. There's a lot of homeless people, and Mayor Ted's little plan, that's not really going to work. But Wheeler first introduced his plan in October to ban street camping and move homeless people to 3 large tent encampments. It was adopted by Portland City Council, with the sanctioned camp portion changed to 6 smaller sites, although the plan currently lacks specific camp locations or enough funding to move forward. So at this point in time, Mayor Ted's plan is an idea. It's an idea, and it's not a very good one because it doesn't get to the root of the problem, which is you've got crazy, homeless, drug addicts running the streets. That's what you've got. And so we're kind of addressing some of that with, all right, maybe we need to involuntarily, put some of these people in the mental institutions that they belong in. But, there's no real mention of drug addiction because you've legalized all the drugs in Portland and, you've basically legalized crime to a certain extent, right? So now that you've allowed all this to happen, I need help. I would like some help. That's the way I see it. I mean, this is some wild stuff. We need some Fed help. We need some state help because we are unable to deal with this on our own. So he's got a plan. He's got an idea, but no funding, no real direction to get it done, and no assurances that this is going to help really turn around the city. Because I have said this so many times. These folks that are causing the damage to Portland won't go to an encampment, period. Addressing Kotek, Wheeler added that the emergency declaration could allow Portland to purchase supplies from a FEMA-subsidized disaster supplies list and suggested the state legislature should allocate direct funding to each Oregon city for city leaders to use to address homelessness response and prevention. You're under the auspices of if you put somebody in under a shelter, they're going to be fine. Their drug addiction's going to go away. And that's the real disconnect here. That is the ultimate disconnect that so many folks are like, well, housing first, give them housing and it'll all turn out. And I'm a strong no-go on that. So here's the real deal. You got fentanyl coming in. Yeah. You've got fentanyl coming in literally by the boatload, by the pound load, by the thousands and thousands and thousands of pills. Washington State, King County, we just had a massive bust. 478,000 fentanyl pills, something like that. Pounds and pounds and pounds of meth. But that's coming in daily. It's coming up through the southern border daily. This is happening daily. So a city like Portland that already allowed this stuff to go on, a little fentanyl won't hurt anybody. Oh, people are dying. That's not good. Now we're at that point where you've got all these fentanyl addicts and meth addicts and people living in tents and crime and everything that goes along with that we're going to couch it under we just got people that are unhoused. And if we could just get them into housing, it's going to be okay. That to me, this is a no-go. This is a no-go. It's a no-go because until you drop the hammer on these folks that have massive addiction problems, this is not going to go away. Kotek has said that she would declare a state of emergency for homelessness, even criticizing Governor Kate Brown for failing to do so. Kate Brown, prior governor, Kotek came in, new governor. I mean, so you declare a state of emergency for homelessness. King County, the county I'm in, has been under a declaration of emergency since 2015. And it's just gotten worse. It's just gotten worse. So, okay. So I understand you can get the federal funds for that. You can get whatever funds, you get state funds for that. Okay. And then you're going to try and build some housing and get people into housing. You need to put people in jail that belong in jail. You need to put people in the mental institutions that need to be in there. And maybe there's a combination of the two because you've just got some crazy folks running around. I mean, literally it's, there's blame on both sides. Crazy people don't know that they need to be institutionalized, but these states, Washington State is the same way. It's like, no, let them choose when they need to get help. How's that going to work out? Well, we're finding out IRL, right? In real time, in real life. An emergency declaration was one of the few things that all candidates for Oregon governor ahead of the November election seemed to agree upon. Additionally, Wheeler asked the Oregon state legislature to change standards of care for people with severe mental illness. All right. So I'm going to be doing another podcast right after this. And do you remember that woman who broke into the house, or she walked in and she went and took a nap on the 10-year-old's bed? And then the mom confronted her, thought that the mom thought that the woman was her husband. Why the husband would be crashed out taking a nap on the 10-year-old's bed, it's unclear. But this whole story was unclear because it involved somebody with, who is not there, who has some severe mental issues. They can't seem to get her, and the government entities in Portland, they can't seem to get her the help that she needs. So Mayor Ted he's going down a road of, okay, we need to involuntarily commit some of these folks. How's that going to go over in Portland, who is so progressive? How's that going to go over? Well, just walk around the streets in downtown Portland and you tell me, right? You tell me. Another big story I just read was there's a massive convention with about 10,000 people that's supposed to come to downtown San Francisco. And we talk about this. The cities that have the downtown cores that are just loaded up with human feces and needles and homeless people and drug addicts running around and people running around committing crazy crimes. San Francisco is one of them. They just lost a pretty major convention that they'd had for years. What was interesting about the story, and I'm going to read the story, is there's not one mention about crime, homelessness, how bad the city looks, all of that. They're just like, yeah, lost the convention, moved elsewhere. Because these things are hard to fix. You let the cat out of the bag, cats running around throughout the city, try getting it back in. Now, that's what Mayor Ted's trying to do. But his approach, with his perspective that, well, if we just get people some housing, it'll be good. You can't put drug addicts in housing and expect them to get better. That's just not how this works. Plus, they're not going to go. They are simply not going to go. You're going to have a war. You're going to have a battle. You're going to bring the feds in and they're going to be rounding people up, just like they accused Trump of during the summer of 2020, which was just absolute nonsense. The feds were there defending a federal building that the knuckleheads from Antifa and Black Lives Matter were trying to burn down. That's what happened, right? That's why we're considering sending in the feds, which makes sense because the city, Mayor Ted, couldn't keep it under control. 100 days of rioting. Yeah. And now we are finally dealing with, you know what? We might have a wee bit of a problem here. There might be a scooch of an issue here that we can't get our hands around. And therefore, state entity, federal entity, we'd love some help. We'd love some help. Yeah. We have reimagined and rethought our position. We need help right now. This year, through KGW's investigative series Uncommitted, investigative reporter Evan Watson shared how Oregon standards for civil commitment or forced mental health care are high, meaning you can't get people in. Here's another issue. You don't have enough spots to get them into. Washington State is the same. Many states are the same. We dumped out our institutions, mental institutions. These people are running around the streets. Now you've got all this fentanyl coming up through the southern border. You got crazy people on drugs, not a good combo. And now they're committing crimes to pay for said drugs. Whatever that drugs was number 2 there, I think. So this leads to a system that can fail to provide care to people with severe symptoms of mental illness. Family members like Brenda Gardner said the current system fails people like her son, Eric, who have turned down mental health treatment, creating a cycle of temporary detentions and releases without sustained care. These people are in and out of jail like you and I go to work. Just like, all right, here's where we're going. Yeah, all right, next day, here's where we're going. It's wild. As far as I'm concerned, the homeless situation is an open-air psych ward, Gardner said. Those people that should be at psychiatric facilities or in supported housing with a caseworker that checks in on them are instead living on the street and being treated like animals. Well, the argument can be made that they are acting like animals. Garbage, human feces, needles. At least animals don't do drugs, to this extent. You've got human trafficking. You've just got that long laundry list of stuff that you see coming out of the encampments. And it's because it's all part of an ecosystem. Wheeler wants the legislature to lower civil commitment standards in the upcoming 2023 session, a much quicker timeline than outlined in the work of an Oregon Judicial Department work group, which is reviewing state standards in order to potentially recommend changes ahead of the 2025 session. So, yeah, I think people recognize this, but they're like, well, we are Oregon. We're very progressive. So we don't want to do anything too rash because that means that we'd have to go back to a slightly more conservative position. That's not going to go over well with our constituents. But the constituents are also at a point where they're like, okay, we got to do something. The problem is you're going to have to drop the hammer, and progressives don't like to drop the hammer. It's like, no, let's let people figure it out on their own. I'm sure they'll make the right decisions. It's not going over well. It's not happening. And Mayor Ted is, the greatest indicator of how far gone the current progressive policy has led them, has put them. Lowering standards for civil commitment would make it easier for people to be forced to get mental health treatment, a threshold which is currently high to protect individual civil rights. Well, what about the civil rights of the homeowners? What about the civil rights of the business owners? What about the civil rights of the moms that want to take their kids to the local parks but can't because they're overrun with tents? Some of that's been squared away, but, walking down the sidewalk to the school, you read stories about, well, I've had to change my path 3 or 4 times. This is in San Francisco and Portland of walking my children to school because, I got to walk around all that over there. And they're talking about drug addicts living in tents and just the utter chaos that goes on there. Wheeler said that these reforms should be linked with expanded community mental health treatment efforts to avoid sending people to jails, emergency rooms, and the already full Oregon State Hospital. Yeah, where are they going to put these people? Where are they going to put these people? We've had such progress that we no longer have a system that can handle these people. And so now we're ratcheting that problem up. We are kicking the problem up through the system, which is, state, because we're at city level now with Portland, right? City level. Now we're going to go to the state. We need some federal help. We're going to have to build these homeless encampments. It's just going to be an absolute train wreck to watch. It is. Because bottom line is, you got a whole bunch of people addicted to fentanyl, and that's a tough one to kick. These people are not going to go into the night quietly. Know what I mean? Next up on his wish list, Wheeler asked for help on Portland's roads to hopefully catch illegal drivers and car thieves. Now, what's the deal there? Well, we defunded the police, and you've crapped on the police profession for so long that you just simply don't have enough cops. And the traffic unit basically got disbanded. You have one cop that's dedicated to traffic in Portland, a city of 641,000 people. One cop. That's Mad Max territory. Mad Max probably still had more cops than that, right? I mean, they probably did. So you get what you pay for. And we are literally watching this in real time. It's like, you're watching that train careen off the tracks, about to go over the embankment and just, So he requested that Oregon State Police help Portland with traffic enforcement over the next year to reduce traffic fatalities and the rising number of car thefts. He's asking state troopers to step in. Would you mind doing a little traffic enforcement? State troopers have their own thing to deal with. They've got their own roadways to deal with. This isn't how this works. You get what you pay for. You paid for defunding the police. You paid for crapping on police in Portland year after year after year. And in 2020, you really did a hard number there, because how many cops have quit, retired, made lateral moves out of Portland? Well, enough where we're asking for the Oregon State Police to step in. Would you mind sending a police officer? We'd like 2 or 3 or 100. How many traffic cars do you need? How many traffic units do you need? Now, more than one, right? More than one. Oregon State Police, I don't know what the numbers are there, but in a lot of sheriff's departments, they're low on officers as well. They're low on sheriffs. They're low on deputies, because everybody just took an enormous dump on policing as a whole. And here we are. We're living, watching it. At the judicial level, Wheeler requested pay parity and other resources for public defense attorneys. So even if they do get, all this laundry list is wish list of a partridge in a pear tree, you get you arrest all these people that are bad guys, and you put the crazy people in the institutions. You don't have institutions for them to go to. You don't have a judicial system for them to go to, because judicial system in Portland, as we've podcasted, has clearly indicated, okay, yeah, we don't have enough public defenders. We're going to have to let some of these folks go. Like 300 recently. So you've got criminals just literally roaming the streets, literally. And that is not right-wing exaggeration. Those are facts that are reflected in Mayor Ted's declaration of, we need an emergency declaration. We need state troopers to come in. We need the Fed to come in. This is literally Mad Max territory. This is Escape from New York territory. That's what you got going on. It's wild. It's wild. And we have, here on News for Reasonable People, we've investigated those, one story after another. And this is not surprising to us. This is more the inevitable, all right, the train just went off the tracks, and we're going to have to see how long it takes for all 45 cars to crash and burn and see if anybody makes it out. Yeah, it's going to be a real process, right? In our investigative series, Injustice, investigative reporter Kyle Eboshi shared multiple perspectives from Oregon's broken public defender system, showing how there are not enough attorneys to represent low-income defendants, leading to delayed or dismissed cases. You've got a police force that is barely hanging on through overtime, and you're catching the bad guys. And then the judicial system just basically, don't have enough public defenders. That's sad. Now, it's not just Portland that's in this situation either. There are other cities. But Portland as a whole has all of this kind of, coming its way, because you get what you voted in. These are not hard concepts to understand. What I find interesting is you see all these people in these areas who are like, well, how come the police aren't coming? How come it takes hours and hours and hours for the police to come? Well, remember when you put that defund the police sign out in front of your yard? Remember when you marched during the pandemic and you said defund the police? Well, that is reflected in the number of police officers in Portland. And here's what you get. Here's what you get. You've got a cobbled together police department, and you've got a less than adequate judicial system, and you've got district attorneys that say that they're taking a hard stance on crime, but the hard reality is they're just letting people out left and right. Just, no, here you go. Released on your own personal recognizance. I know you may or may not have committed a murder, but I'm sure you'll come back for your court hearing. That's literally what's going on. It's hard having too much work to be able to do, said public defense attorney Willie Chodson, knowing what best practices would look like, but not having the time to do every single thing that will help my clients and help my cases. Well, they're not able to help a large number of cases that are being just basically turned loose. And so you've got a police force that's already undermanned, and you've got a city that is experiencing basically just lawlessness. And that's what we've been talking about. And this is the confirmation here that, yeah, it is bad, because a mayor does not reach out to the governor unless they're literally crying uncle. And that's what you've got going on here. Mayor Wheeler listed a few other funding requests on his wish list, including state funding for affordable housing development, new funding and capacity for police officer training, and expanded Medicaid funding eligibility. All right. Maybe we should, the capacity for police officer training. Absolutely. This other stuff, you got to get your priorities. You got to work out what you're going to do with all the drug addicts you got going on that are living homeless, and the crimes they're committing, and the inability to put these people either in jail or in mental institutions where they belong. So let's focus on that. I think the fine residents of Portland would like to see that. But you know what? Maybe they don't, because this is what they voted. They voted for this stuff, and it's happening. And now they're like, what are we doing? Last week, Governor-elect Tina Kotek started her listening tour around Oregon and listed her top 3 priorities: mental and behavioral health care, early childhood education, and housing. Nothing about drug addiction, right? Mental and behavioral health care. Does that cover drug addiction? No, it doesn't. Wildly separate topic. Oftentimes it's kind of lumped in and it's known, but you've got a bunch of drug addicts running around, but nobody wants to talk about that, because then you got to take a hard kind of party line look at, well, how did we get here? And then what do we do about it? Gonna have to do something. Because the issues that we're talking about, the unhoused and, these folks living just rough out in the, wild streets of Portland, they're not going to just go, they're not going to, you know what? Today, I'm just going to get sober. That doesn't happen. You might see a story about that every now and then, but oftentimes they're being taken out of their tent in a body bag. And we know this because we know the life expectancy of somebody living unhoused is way less. It's about 1/3 less than the regular population. We just know that. So it's not like they're going into treatment and things are miraculously going to get better. No, they choose to live where they do. And this is how you end up with massive tent encampments with all the craziness that's entailed with that. So the 2023 legislative session begins on January 17th. It should be entertaining, if nothing else, to see how this goes down in Portland, because the residents of Portland, they know that they've got just some massive issues. We haven't even talked about the gun violence. Haven't even touched on that, because that's kind of like, all right, in addition to, record levels of homicides. All right. So we got 90 something homicides. You got more homicides in Portland than you do in cities 2, 3, 4, 5 times as large. You do. So it's like, okay, what's going on? What's in the water in Portland? Well, it's not in the water until you voted into office. And so can we count on some more of those folks that fine people of Portland voted into office again in the 2020 elections. Can we count on them to 2022 elections? Can we count on them to really make some changes? I'd be a betting man. I'm not a betting man, but I'd be a betting man and I'd say, it'll be interesting at best to watch how it goes down. That's why you need to tune in here on News for Reasonable People, because I'm going to be covering this in depth because this is some craziness. All right. That's it for me. Happy New Year. Hope you have the best New Year, whatever it is you're doing. Maybe you're partying like a rock star. Probably not. I won't be either. I mean, I might have some fun, but not out of control because we're reasonable. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch up in the next one. Bye for now.